Hey guys, this is Sugar and welcome to a new episode of Sugar's channel. Today, I would like to share with you guys something that is fascinating to talk about. But before we lead into this topic, just thinking about what had happened 4 days ago. So today is April the 5th, and 4 days ago, it's April the 1st. And April the 1st, April Fool's Day, of course. So what has happened on April Fool's Day? What we have already know. We told the jokes, we told the lies, and we had lots of fun, just like what we had truly before. However, this year, in 2026, something unusual has happened on this day. And while we're having the jokes and lies, the most unprecedented access that ever happened in the history of space truly happened. So today, I'm going to review that Artemis II mission on that day and what has truly happened on April Fool's Day while we're having the jokes and the lies. So let's step into this topic. Well, we have already told you guys the Artemis II mission. It's truly a mission, and the main aim of Artemis II mission is to returning the human beings to the moon. So talking about the moon, we know that many countries did some actions from very long ago. People looked the moon, they watched the moon. We even have some of our cultures about the moons, right? And later, when the techniques, they improve, and then by now people send rockets to watch the moon and to do some research about the moon. And like some of these countries like China and some European countries, they have already done many experiments that ever happens on the moon, like sending the rockets to the moon. So talking about the moon, we have lots to talk about, and maybe we have already know and mastered all of the information about the moon. However, scientists found out that it's not true. Something deep inside the moon, we have never explored that. Especially the back of the moon is what we also call the far side of the moon. Very less people have ever traveled to that place and to have a deeper look and to do some research about that part of the moon. So today, Artemis II mission is more likely to discover the points and what has happened behind the moon. So it's a fascinating story, and let's start right here. We have already talked about China and other European countries that did some actions, and at this point, California did some actions. So on April Fool's Day, April the 1st, the rocket of Artemis II launched at the Kennedy Space Center in around 6:25 to 6:26 p.m. in Florida, California. And this is when Artemis II, this rocket launched, taking 4 of the astronauts to the space, and it traveled just a very far time and then lasting for 10 days. And it also means that NASA shows 10 days later is April the 10th. The rocket will land safely on Earth. Maybe safely on Earth. So this is a pretty, unprecedented access, and also the most risky thing that maybe human beings will do at this period of time. And even NASA prepared, maybe if this rocket cannot land on Earth safely, maybe on April the 10th, they planned the backups to April the 30th. So this period of 20 days time, they prepared so many things, and it also shows that how important that this mission can be and how it can influence to us if this thing had ever succeed. So in Kennedy Space Center, this thing had happened just 4 days ago. And even by now, today is April the 5th, the spaceship is still in the space carrying the 4 astronauts. The 4 astronauts. So who are they actually? The 4 astronauts are the 4 not very famous astronauts, but they have their own features. So the first, also the commander, is the Reed Wiseman. Reed Wiseman has the most experiences, and he's the commander of the 4 astronauts. And the second is Victor Glover. He's a pilot, and in 40 years he has, trained to become a pilot, and in this 40 years he drove, and he also flew many kinds of planes, or I can say all kinds of planes. He's a very brilliant pilot. However, he's a black man. He is the only colored person who ever goes and ever traveled on a spaceship in history. And the third is a woman. This woman is called Christina Koch. Christina Koch is the mission specialist, and I can say she did many things, and she also spent more than 365 days in the International Space Center not long ago. And this time, April the 1st, she traveled as one of the 4 astronauts to go to the moon and to explore that. So she is also the first woman who ever traveled so far away from Earth. This is another 2 point. And the last astronaut goes to the space with the other 3 astronauts. He is called Jeremy Hansen. He is not American. He is the Canadian astronaut. So you might be confused, totally confused. How can a Canadian astronaut even join inside NASA, this huge, I can say, space company, and to take this mission? And more importantly, he is not only not America, but also he has never did such kind of like pilot things and astronaut things or like the specialist things. This is his first time ever travels to the space. And this is also the first time he skipped all of those important experiences. This is his first time ever travels to space with this very extremely tough task. So this crew is the most amazing one that I've ever seen. One is the commander, and the second one is a colored person, and he's a pilot. And the third is the mission specialist, and she is a woman. And the last, he is even non-America. And he is the first person who ever goes to, sorry, just forget about what I've said. And this is also his first experience ever travel to space. This crew is remarkable, I can say. So the 4 of them, they did this job, and they are the only crew that will travel to the space this time and to travel and to explore something that is at the very far side of the moon. So thinking about this point, first talking about the space mission. This mission is important. So if I became an astronaut, I won't be super scared, but mostly exciting, I think. I'll be very excited for maybe 3 reasons. The first one, this is my first and the only chance that I can grab it so that I can go to space and travel this super long time. Maybe I can be the second woman ever travel so far from Earth. So this is my first and also the only chance that I can go to space. However, before all of these things will happen, I have to train myself well, or otherwise I might truly die in the space, even if I didn't go outside. And the second part that I might feel super excited, and because of that, I will risk it. I will truly risk it, not only for China, not only for America, but for the human beings, because this thing is not what Americans can do. Maybe Chinese people can do, maybe Canadian people can do. All of us can do, and our only aim is to return the human beings, not the Americans, not the Chinese, to the moon. So at this point, I've been holding this for a very long time, and now it's time for me to risk it. So I'll be super excited. However, despite some of these perfect reasons that I will feel excited, but I will still feel scared, of course, some of the points, and we'll talk about that later. So I know it's important, and I'm going to risk it if I have the chance, and if I have the ability, I will truly risk it, of course. So talking about the 2 astronauts, the 2 of them, one is Victor Glover and the second is Christina Koch. The two of them, one is a colored person and the other is a woman. And also what we called Jeremy Hansen. He is non-America. So I think of something. It is very important, truly important, to put these people together and to take this mission together. There are two main reasons, I think. The first is to prepare for the later missions, like in 2027 and in 2028, even to 2033. That is true. We'll talk about that later. Even by 2033, this period of time, we have the later missions and waiting for the human beings to try. So at this point of the view, we have to make sure that not only men, but also women, they can both adapt the tough environment, maybe on the moon or maybe on other planets. So we have to make sure that everybody is just Christian Koch, Victor Glover, and Jeremy Hansen. Maybe the three of them are just examples, but not all of them. But maybe scientists and NASA can use these three brave astronauts to test if people from all over the world, maybe they can adapt this kind of tough environment, that if they can live on the moon or something. So this might be the first reason. And the second is everyone should be welcomed. Why only Americans? Maybe some European countries, some of these people can also attend this mission too. So I think people from all over the world, they can, if they have the ability, they can also go and to travel to the moon and to take this mission, of course. And furthermore is to also build great relationships between the nations. So I think it's important. And the following two reasons are what I think that welcoming the colored people, the women, and the non-American people, just as the three examples, are very important for our future and our space, maybe space future. What happens next? Well, we cannot it can be unexpected. So the crew is important, and the most unprecedented thing and the most unexpected thing is what I'm going to share with you right now. So talking about what they will do, I've drew a picture about it, and I have already searched some of those most important missions and some of those pictures about what happens next whenever they travel to the moon. And this is my picture. I'll show you guys. So you can see this NASA. I searched it on the internet, and just a minute, I'll change my seat so that I can show you guys clearly. So I've drew this picture. As you can see, this is our planet Earth right here, and this is the moon. It's pretty small, but we can still see it right here. So that mission will be like this. First, in this place, dot one, and then travel around circle, and then through this period, and then back to Earth. So this is a huge mission, of course. So first, talking about from 1 to 4, in this period of time, they will do the first loop, like what I have already drew using my red pen. And in this place is the first loop. You can see that first loop. The astronauts and also Artemis II will have 2 loops around the Earth, and then using 1 loop around the moon, and then return back to the Earth. And at this point of the view, the red marks are just the first loop, as we can see. And the second, what the pink mark will show you guys, is the second loop. And the second loops are like in this point, as you can see, until right here. And what about that dot right here? This pink dot, it means it will burn for 2 times. Why we say they will burn for 2 times? Because of one reason. They have to check if everything is okay, so that they can kind of like remove everything as well, so that they can go to the moon. So this will be a very great burn, and this is also the second loop, as we can see right here. So not only this, after these 2 loops, they have already tried and they have already experienced, because today is the 5th day of their travel in space, so they have already suffered that. So I've, calculate maybe they're by now it's like 10:15 p.m. So maybe they have already traveled to this place. Maybe my calculation, if this is right, maybe this will be the place that they have already arrived. So when they burn, they will continue to the most amazing part of the whole mission is they will soon arrive at 12:45 p.m. and they will have the live perform maybe tomorrow. Yeah, I think maybe tomorrow. And it will show my yellow point. They will go and to ready to cross this long period that is 380,000 kilometers. This very long period of maybe this length of that, maybe this length. And then they will try to make a circle and then went back to Earth. So they will have the live performance, and also at 1:45 a.m. is what I write in here. They will break the record of the Apollo mission that ever has. So as we know, the Apollo mission that ends right here. And then they went back to the moon, and we know that Apollo mission, it explodes in this kind of place because of some of those accidents, and that spaceship does not make it right. So in here, they will do that live show at 12:45 p.m. maybe tomorrow. Let's wait. And then they were heading toward the moon. And as for this period of time, from this white mark, as you can see, and this white mark, these 25 minutes will be so tough. They will be the far side of the moon. This far side of the moon is very important. And at that time, there's no rescue, and there's no safety things. They cannot go back. They cannot go to the Earth, and there's no signals. And it means these 25 minutes, nobody will know what has ever happened in that 25 minutes, but only the 4 astronauts. So this is what they will suffer at that time. Nobody will know. Even the people who waited and waited on Earth, the only thing is they can wait for the signal lights to return to light up again. So at this time, they are at the far side of the moon, and no one will know what happens next. And as for the return, it will be incredible. The return is from this point of the view and until back to Earth. So talking about this lawn is super long. So we will use NASA wants and NASA plans to use the Earth's gravity guide back the spaceship and to take the 4 astronauts back to Earth safely. And even if there's any kind of crashes or any burnout and explosions ever happens at the mid of the time, when they're ready to went back home, at that time it can make it easier because they can use the Earth's gravity to guide back the 4 astronauts, even they face some of those difficulties. So, what we know, the Apollo mission. The Apollo mission is what we can see right here. I've write it. People's last time, the Apollo 13, the last time in 1972. Last time in 1972, from 1961 to 1972 is what we call the Apollo mission. And at that time, we have the most experience and most extraordinary explode just right here. However, because of that gravity kind of thing, and then they kind of whoosh and take the 3 astronauts back to Earth directly. So we just can say, oh my gosh, they're super lucky. And even by now, 54 years later, astronauts and NASA are still using this wonderful and natural kind of road and to lead them back to Earth safely. I just hope. So it's this will be the most maybe dangerous part of all the mission. And whenever they arrived at this part, closely to Earth, they will kind of land. They will splash down at the Pacific Ocean. And, oh, sorry, not in here, but in here, we can say At this pink red dot, there's the parachute. And the 4 astronauts will use the parachutes and to land safely on Earth. Splash down into Atlantic Ocean. And at that time, the rescue team will go and find them. And this is all what will happen in all this huge mission of Artemis II. And I'm super tired of saying all of those things. I'm sweating. And this is very amazing. I can say this whole mission is amazing, and what will happen next in the rest 4 days or maybe 2 days, it's truly unprecedented, and truly we cannot even expect what will happen next, especially this huge task. So Artemis II, this mission is incredible, and I can say if this thing ever succeed, there will be more missions are waiting for us. Just for 4 other examples. So, NASA planned Artemis III will launch in 2027 if this time they succeed. And in 2027, Artemis III is to test the docking in low Earth orbit. And as for the next year is 2028. In 2028, there will be Artemis IV. And Artemis IV is planning to land the astronauts near the South Pole on the moon. And this is only what I have already read in the article. But as I know, Elon Musk's SpaceX travel part is not just waited and not end on the moon, but also they want to travel to Mars. So there's something to add, is at 2030, Elon Musk planned to go to Mars, to take the people to Mars. And this will be the first crew landing. And in 2033, 3 years later, Mars outpost establishment. So at this point of the view, from 2026 is this year to 2033, if this period of time the missions are being cleared and everything goes well, this can be a task and this thing can be incredible, I can say. And maybe when I grow up and I can see a different world, and I don't know what will ever happens about our space in the future. So I can say I'm truly impressed by all of that. However, in my opinion, thinking about Elon Musk's ideas and about the later 2 missions that might happen, maybe 80% happens in the next 2 years. Even by now, I don't truly think that people can live on the moon. Even I know some of these technologies and techniques are, pretty futuristic and perfect. But I'm still not sure because of the following 3 reasons. The first one is what we call the techniques and the technology. It's not safe enough and it's not good enough. It's not pretty safe. And no matter it's Elon Musk or NASA, they cannot be sure if there's anything will happen wrong at that time. So the techniques are not available for people to travel not only to the moon, but also on Mars, but also to Mars. So I think maybe this is the first reason. And second is maybe the first crew that will ever travel to the moon and to stay in there for the research and for the test will only be maybe 2% of the people in the whole world, because no one wants to risk their lives on such a risky thing. And this is also the third reason, it's super risky. So because of that following 3 reasons, I still don't think that people can live on Earth. People can live on the moon or maybe live on Mars. The techniques aren't well enough, and NASA and even some of those other companies, they can't be 100% sure if there's none things being left behind of their mind. So I think these reasons are important, and before they do these kind of tasks, they have to think about that very clearly. So as for the result, if Artemis II ever succeed, maybe these things, if whenever the researchers, the scientists, have already checked that and make sure everything is okay, I think these missions can still go on. Or otherwise, everything's just like a boom and a burst and everything will collapse. So 54 years, half a century, people have been waiting such a long time for some rockets will ever launch to the moon to explore something new. And this time they did that. I'm not sure, but I just hope that everything can go well. Everything goes well. If everything goes well, there will be nothing to risk and everything can turn into peace and the missions can still continue. As for some of those other things, talking about astronaut, this kind of thing, I love astronauts and my dream is to become an astronaut when I was very young for following two reasons. Because first I just think, oh, what will ever happen in space? And I have already seen many photos of our planet Earth. So what can Earth truly be like if I use my barely eyes to see the Earth and to take care of it and to look after it? I like the way to look down and to look at the Earth, our planet Earth. So I just truly want to be an astronaut when I was a very little kid. And even by now, I still want to be an astronaut. I think even it's risky, but I love adventures. If maybe I have this only chance, I'm going to grab it, I'm going to catch it, and to make it for my country and make it for all human beings. And I think it can be very unprecedented. So as for me, I would like to go if my class did some of those kind of projects, I don't know, can take some of only one classmate to travel to space. That will be me. If I'm going to choose, that will be me, of course. I just love that kind of feeling, but I will still face three main difficulties, and I think the three main difficulties will be the mainly three parts. First is the liftoff. You know that Columbia rocket? One of the rockets I remember is in 1959 or some period of time. The rocket, which is named Columbia, launched on that day, and within 7 astronauts inside. Because of that liftoff, that isn't right, that the 7 astronauts died together in the rocket without leaving the Earth. So maybe this thing, the liftoff, will be important. And it is also very hard to say that when people, exactly what time can people say it finally launched successfully? It is hard to say only these 3 words, it's 3 words, but it's still very hard to say. So the liftoff is the main thing that is the most important in this whole mission. And the second will be the return. Why say the return? Because as for this Artemis II, this mission, as for this rocket's, this spaceship's return is very dangerous. 380,000 kilometers, this long period of length from the moon to the Earth, this long period, can you truly make sure that everything's okay? You cannot make sure of that, of course. So the return can be a problem. No matter the beginning, but also the end. Everything can be a problem. And the main thing inside, between the liftoff, and the return, what's inside is the unexpected accidents that might happen on you. As for an example, Artemis II, this mission, the 4 astronauts, they will spend 25 minutes inside their own space in that rocket, and nobody will ever know what will happen to them. Maybe they cannot adapt that super bad environment, and of course that atmosphere, maybe that oxygen is not available for them to breathe enough. Or maybe they face some other, maybe meteorites that hits them because no one will know what weather is behind at the far side of the moon. And at this point, it can be a task, a very huge task, and 25 minutes, only the 4 of them know what will happen. Or maybe they even don't know, and what we can do on Earth is just to wait and to pray that everything's okay. So the 3 of them lift off, return, and in the middle, the unexpected accidents are the 3 main parts and the 3 main difficulties. And despite the 3 of them, we have to make ourselves strong enough to adapt all of those weathers, those extreme atmospheres, or even something more that we cannot expect. Just for an example, you might think this thing is taking that too far, but something that is truly near us is some of those big examinations, those big tests. Before those big examinations, there's still tests, many tests for the students to do. And in my opinion, this is very necessary. So talking about NASA has to make sure 2 things, at least 2 things. The first is the astronauts' health and their lives. Because of this mission, it carries and it's truly risking 4 people's lives. And how can NASA even put an eye on that thing? So we have to make big examinations and big tests before this huge launch, this huge mission that will happen and to remark as a history. So this thing can be a problem, especially the 4 people's lives. And the second will be the clothes. The clothes, they might do something. And I've searched on the internet and I found out that before they launched their rocket, scientists did something that is unusual to the 4 astronauts, is they did something to their clothes. You know, a very long time ago, we have only the small size, the medium size, and the biggest size for the astronauts. But this time, it's absolutely unusual. They have their own astronauts' clothes, their own suits. Something has changed. As for the mainly three tools and 3 things that changed on their clothes. So first, talking about their, the main, what is that called? Of their main clothes. That is not actually the small size, the medium size, and the biggest size. They're not 3 size, but is what the scientists measures their own weight, measures their own height, and to make themselves their own clothes. It's like just right for their own, to make them feel comfortable and to be flexible of making those emergency or something. And the second is their hands. They have to wear the gloves, you know. Those gloves are important. Scientists put some of those techniques on their gloves so that it can make it easier for them to tap something and to sweep something and to maybe to push something off or maybe turn something on. Also can make it easier for them to take the calls and to communicate from the earth, from the space to the earth. So this is the second thing. And some of these more things are like the huge mask, and that mask they will have to lift down. And at this point of the view, scientists also did something even better than before, is they add some of those techniques inside, right on the out layer and also in the inner layer of that mask. They put some thinner techniques inside to make them have enough oxygen, and also put a chemical thing on the out layer of the mask to make sure they can stand the high temperature, like higher to the maximum adds up to 2,800 degrees Celsius, maybe this high temperature. So even the fire ever burns on their mask, it's actually okay. So they have to make sure these, and even more, some of them even more, I cannot, because of that time, I cannot share with you guys so many of them, but mainly the 3 of them are pretty important. So the clothes and the fit if this is good on themselves and if it truly fits them. It depends on themselves, and if there's anything that is wrong, they will do that from the very start and to do that again and again until they make their own clothes to let them go into space. Something a bit weird is that their clothes, the astronauts' clothes, are not white, are not the pure white like what China and other European countries that have already done. But this time it's not, it's orange. Why are they going to make themselves some of those astronauts' clothes in orange color? Because of one thing. What we have already mentioned is these astronauts, they will use the Earth's gravity to guide them back to Earth and then splash down into the Pacific Ocean. This orange color is bright. The bright orange color stands for the National Protection Emergency. So whenever the emergency group, they saw those orange kind of things inside the Pacific Ocean, they knew is the 4 astronauts, and they will go there immediately, and it can also improve high level of the astronauts' lives. I mean, maybe it can make it easier for them to stay alive, but not maybe drowned in the water because of that white clothes. So orange is a pretty easy way for the rescue team to recognize and to save them immediately. We have already talked about the clothes, so some of the things that I have already also checked on the internet is also important. This mission might fail. You might feel surprised because I've talked about that so many things, and that might failed, all of them, because of one shield. That metal shield. This is kind of like this big, a square, this big, and this is using to make sure that not the flames, not the high temperature will go inside the rocket where the 4 astronauts stayed in that place and gathered around. It can make it easier for them to survive and make sure that no more temperature higher than 2,800 degrees Celsius. But this metal shield is kind of like something broken, and it is not very sure. It's not the outlook broken, but the inner broken. So sorry, but the inner broken, and that was left because of the Apollo 13, that mission, the last mission that happens before, sorry, I forgot that name, last happened before Artemis II, this mission, so it's like the latest ones. And they have the problem of the metal shields, and this might have the huge effect to Artemis II, this rocket. So it means if there's anything that goes wrong because of this tiny thing, because of just the shield, everything will be failed and the 4 lives cannot be saved. And this is truly cleared. What's more is that before launching the rocket, just maybe one day or 2 days ago, before that launch time, the rocket launched to space. Before that, scientists, when they double-checked the rocket, they find out the fuels, some of those fossil fuels and some of those chemical things are not right inside the rockets. It can't make it more easier to let them do the liftoff thing. And they became anxious, and they immediately changed all the things. And the next day, the day just right before the launching day, they did their second experiment, and they found out something more. Just a little hole as big as a nail is being pushed by some of those tools, some of those gears inside, and then it's not right, so that the rocket cannot work properly. So at that time, it's not so well, not a good sign for them, and the scientists, they change immediately. However, some of those scientists say they might do that again, so it also means this rocket might not launch on April Fool's Day, on April the 1st, maybe 2 days or maybe 3 days later. However, scientists and people who work in NASA said, we can't let this thing happen again. We cannot test that. we can just let it go, let it be, and to hope that everything goes well on the launch day. So luckily it happens, everything's going well on that launch day, and rocket Artemis II finally and successfully launched to the space. However, because of that thing, they didn't do many experimental things. People who worked in NASA said we cannot do the third experimental, the test again, because we might reduce the length, or reduce the using of the time that the rocket can stand. So luckily it lifted off successfully, but if there's anything wrong, maybe the 4 of them will die, as what it had happened on the Columbia rocket maybe 10 years ago. So it is very tough, and no one knows if ever this metal shell did something wrong and it cannot stand. The 4 people can never come back and to meet their loved ones, and especially the commander, Reed Wiseman. He has 2 sons, and Victor Clover, he has 3 daughters, and some of them, they have their beloved ones. They cannot see their beloved ones ever again, and oh my gosh, that is tough. I mean, that is tough. If something collapsed at that point of the view, they cannot come back to Earth successfully. They will lose their beloved ones, they will lose everything, and I think they will have a very tough time. So risking the 4 people's life, thinking about that deeply, we can truly find out that NASA has to make sure that everything goes well, or otherwise it's not only risking the 4 people's life, but also risking maybe $1 or even more billion on this kind of only single mission, and it will does the huge effect and huge influence that whatever happens and to do with the later 4 missions from 2027 to 2033. These missions are important, and especially Artemis II, you must hold this. So I'm a bit, excited and very tempting about this. Of course, even I'm just a Chinese, but I still felt, super tempting because it connects with our human beings and our future of the space. Will we be able to go to the moon? Will we be able to travel to Mars one day? Everything are truly unexpected, and we are just to wait and just to wait. So, as for me, no matter what China has done, no matter what Florida has done, no matter what California has done, no matter what America has done, our main mission is to do this thing and to explore some of the outer space. And so thinking about what is my favorite part. My favorite part of every time, I will be very exciting, very tempting to see 3, 2, 1, booster ignition and liftoff. We have already talked about that. We have already heard about that several times in the history, from the history a long time ago until now. We often heard that 3, 2, 1, booster ignition and liftoff, and often heard that on the news. This is what I always love to hear. I know that we succeed another time. I will first be super excited and move forward to the future. Science is what I always think in my brain, in my mind. I think, our techniques is improving a lot more better, and we succeed another time. And second, I'll feel unbelieving, and that I will be truly unbelievable for what I've seen, no matter on TV, or maybe if one day I can go to the Lifetime and to see the live perform, to see the rocket rose up from the ground and then with the flames and then shoot into space, and I'll feel super excited and unbelievable. And the third, I'll feel super heart pounding and a bit scared, I can say. No one can be sure if this liftoff can be succeed or something else, but at this period of time, I will feel super heart pounding and a bit scared because no one will know, what happens next. So all I can think of by now is in China, Beijing Standard Time, by now is 10:45 p.m. So right now in the space, the 4 astronauts are still inside waiting for what will happen tomorrow. Maybe if I'm one of them, maybe my feeling right now, maybe it's not scared but afraid, and just pray and hope. If they have long enough, if they have their standard memories, their core memories inside, and their main aim is to moving forward our science techniques a lot more better, another step, maybe by now what they're thinking is they have to stand that and to risk that. But I can feel that they will feel afraid, and they'll carry their hope maybe because of 2 reasons. All human beings from all over the world, all countries are waiting for them to return. And the second is they must miss their loved ones, no matter their sons, their daughters, their husbands, their wives. I think they miss their beloved ones, of course. And I also think that when the first time they ever made this promise to travel to the space, to do this tough mission, they did something in their brain and they did something in their mind. They have to make sure everything's okay and they're going to risk it. So talking about that so much, I'm just going to add a little bit more that I have already checked on the internet. Just a minute, I'll show you guys. So this is what has happened. This one is the Artemis II 2026, and this one is Apollo 8 in 1968. The Apollo mission happens in 1961 to 1972, and this is Apollo 8, just maybe one of them. And we can see this Artemis II, this mission is absolutely different. We can say some of those similar things that happens between Artemis II and Apollo 8. So, as what we can see is Apollo 8 scientists NASA choose to take the first loop and only the first loop around Earth, and then to go and to take another loop around the moon, and then take the loop back to Earth, and with only this simple kind of like place for the 3 astronauts, or maybe I don't know how many of them to stay. And as for Artemis II, this time we just like using 2 loops, and I think 2 loops is better than 1 in each, in the moon and in the Earth. But this time in Earth, I think this one is important. Why is it that? Because 2 loops, you can make sure that everything's okay so that you can travel perfectly to the moon and to take that full loop. And then we can see, we did not take a full loop, a full circle around the moon, unlike the Apollo 8, that mission. But this time we just take the far side of the moon and to take that back and to then return to the Earth. So we have some of those similar parts, and some of them are kind of, I can say, totally different for what Apollo 8 has ever done to their rockets. And maybe some of those differences is what the scientists has already discovered those things, and then they made their results, made their conclusions, and they understand that they have to make sure everything's okay, and then travel to the moon, and then to use their least time that they can save, and to come back to Earth immediately. So comparing the 2 lengths of Apollo 8 and Artemis II, its length can be, maybe I can say, further more than Apollo 8. However, this more can make sure that everything's okay, unlike Apollo 8. But we still can't judge if Apollo 8, if it did anything good. It did something important, is that they made that promise and to take the first step of exploring the outer space and what's behind the far side of the moon. So we have to say, because of Apollo 8 and because of that Apollo mission, Artemis II, this mission can start. So I can say all of those things are big movements, and I just wish that people can do a lot more better, and those missions from 2027 to 2033 can happen as well. So for 54 years, people has been waiting for better and better, space traveling things, and I just hope that everything's okay. And I just wish that Metal Shelled will take those 4 astronauts back home safely. So let's just pray, and let's just work, and let's just hope that everything will go as well on April the 10th, and let's find out on April the 10th also. So that's all for today, and see you next time, of course. If you know any news of them, please share with me. That's all for today. See you next time. Bye.